Hey everybody, welcome back to the Tiny Lab Build site, where, by the way, the motto is always, raise your right hand. Sometimes, I am an idiot. Doesn't that feel better? So we're all admitting it. Now today we're doing windows, and I have never done windows before. I've never installed them. I have actually never seen fresh windows that are ready to be installed. So I was a little confused about how this all works, and I looked online at all kinds of animations and instruction sets and blogs about it, and that helped some. But I just wanted to see somebody do it from beginning to end, and I couldn't find one of those videos. So we're going to make one for you right now. Now, first thing that you can see is that we are going to be doing that window. It is currently covered in a plastic sheet. That is a normal, just a sheet of 6mm polyethylene plastic tarp that you can get at any home improvement store. We used that to protect the framing while we were putting stuff up from the rain, and now it's covering up the opening from rain, because it rained all last night and early this morning, so we wanted to make sure that that was protected. So that is the first thing that we're going to have to take off in order to start installing our windows. So let's do that. Okay. So this is the same plastic that we used, as you can see, our psychedelic awesome duct tape here, for the blower door test, which was a real shot in the dark as far as just airtightness. This is not very airtight. So we're done with that, which I'm happy about. We're taking out our staples as well because I want a very flush, clean surface up here. So I'm going to toss these out. Now, as you can see, the weather barrier, which is here, this beautiful Solitex Mento, has already been cut to receive the window. What we do is you cut along the top. First of all, you cut straight down the middle. Then we cut the bottom, and we cut the top, and you've got two little flaps that you fold in. Those have been cut short so that we can tape, which is what we're going to do next. And this is cut, and we're going to go ahead and tape this up to above because we want to work underneath it all, and then we're going to fold this down at the end to keep the rain out as well. So now on the inside of the house, you can see the framing is exposed. We have not insulated here, even though we have the insulation, but I wanted to make sure that no rain got in and got my insulation wet because that is not good. So when we were designing this, we had all of the rough openings, which is what they call the size of the hole that they want you to have available so that they can install the window, or you can install the window, which is what we're teaching you to do right now. Now, I did not know what that meant, and so this window happens to be perfectly fine. What we have here is two studs that are running from the header, in this case, which is right over the wheel well, up to the top plate. And this is the sill of the window, and this is the top of the window. And neither of these is supported by any pieces of wood along the side. That is okay, because you only need a header for your windows and your doors if you are interrupting the normal stud alignment, because the roof is putting weight on these pieces of wood. And if you're interrupting this by making a window that's wider than this, then you need to put a header. So right now we have just the simple piece of wood, nice and easy. Now, as a first-time architect who built the SketchUp model in Google SketchUp, to get all the 3D dimensions and everything, I was a little conservative and I was very nervous about these windows because the instructions they give you are, they say, well, the window that you just ordered is 41 inches by 41 inches in this window's case. This is an awning. But the rough opening, which is the size of the hole that we want to have there so that this window will fit properly, is between 3/4 and 1.5 inches more than that on minimum. I don't know what that means. I want an exact number because I'm building all this in a computer. So what I did is just kind of overestimate, and I made the hole significantly bigger. It turns out 2.5 inches bigger than it needs to be, which is 1 inch over their minimum requirement. What that means is that now we have to come in later and add this piece of wood, which is totally unnecessary. And as you know, I do not like extra pieces of wood because they take the place of insulation, which is what I really want to have in my walls, as long as everything is standing up and is going to be structurally sound. So this was a mistake. I wanted to share it with you. The reason that we had to have this is because the flanges, this is called a nail fin window, and the fins come out. There are these kind of flanges that go to the outside, and they're only so wide. They're about 1 inch wide, and so you have to just have 1 inch gap, because if you have more than that, you're not nailing into anything, you're nailing into the air, which is bad. So avoid this if you possibly can. So back to our success. This is an extra piece of wood technically, but this is incredibly important. Now what they will tell you in a best practice sense is that this window sill framing piece should be angled at a 15-degree angle. In the first place, what does that really mean? Because I don't have like special angle things out here. I'm sure that carpenters, real carpenters do, but for someone like me or for a builder who's like, I just want to get this incorporated in a really fast way. I don't want to start telling my framer, hey, I want you to pitch all these up at 15 degrees. So instead, what you can do is just add this 1/2-inch piece of plywood that's an inch thick, an inch wide from the one side to the other at the back of the sill. Now, this especially works for us because we're not always sure that this tiny house on wheels is going to be perfectly level. We might be parked on a hill and it might be difficult to get that level. So if we're walking around like this, a slope that's a gentle slope might not actually be what we need. Additionally, in order to get that 15 degrees, you actually need a pretty hefty slope on this 2x4. So instead, what we're going to do is just have this dam here. The goal of this is if water does get in here, past the window and it gets into this windowsill area, it's going to just sit there and not come in because we do not want water coming in and getting into our wall cavities from here. That'll cause all kind of staining on the drywall, and you may have had water problems in your house that you've noticed. This is why this thing was not installed. So now that this is here, we're going to be able to install the window flashing, which is a flexible flashing, and we're going to do that after we secure this airtight to the framing. Now I've cut 2 strips of this Tescon tape, which is meant to go with this weather barrier system from Proclima, so that it's just long enough to go from the top to the bottom. Now one of the secrets about this, in case you've never found this out, I can get the backing off of this tape very easily if I just simply roll my finger over the edge. It'll catch on the tape itself. And of course, now that I'm doing this on camera, it's not working. It catches on the tape and your thumb is actually stuck to this tape. That's the best way to get this off because you can spend 5 minutes trying to get this stupid little paper backing off here, at which point you say, you know what, tape doesn't work. This totally sucks. So don't do that. Don't be that guy. Go ahead and just work with the tape so that it's smart. This is the best way to do this, nice and clean. So we're going to start at the top. And I know that this black weather barrier is tight to the wall because we have pulled it taut and stapled it. So now I want to make sure that my staple holes are being covered by this tape that I'm putting up there because otherwise they're going to be exposed and there might potentially be water vulnerabilities or air leakage vulnerabilities. Another trick with this tape, by the way, is if you want it to go in a certain line, you just hold it with one hand and pull the backing with the other hand, and it does what you want. The adhesive in this tape is pressure activated, so I need to press really hard and make sure that it all got totally in contact with this framing member. Okay, and we do the other side. Okay, next step is the flex flash for the sill. This is incredibly important. Now we're using a nice wide piece of tape. I'm going to let it lap up the sides 6 to 8 inches. 6 inches is some manufacturers, 8 inches for others. Ultimately, it's just a function of kind of how much rain you're expecting and how much wind-driven rain. So now I know how long that needs to be. This tape has 3 pieces of backing on it. There's a little tiny piece, which is very handy because I can get this in place and then work with the rest of the tape in stages, which is really important, and you'll see why in a second. Now the goal here is to make sure that we're protecting this from rain. This is essentially a giant piece of rubber. It's flexible. And you want to make sure that it gets down into the corners. So when you go around corners, make sure that you're pushed tight into it and then take the backing off. so that I've got a nice tight little corner there, and it's because I've forced the thing in there. You can buy all kinds of cool little tools to make this flex flashing work better. You can also use your little hands, which is what I am doing. So just to make sure that that corner gets in there really, really tightly so that you are avoiding any potential for rain damage. Now, as you can see, we have attached this sill flashing, which is again kind of a rubberized tape, just to the lip of the interior. That's for a couple reasons. First of all, if rain makes it all the way to here, any kind of water for any reason, we're done. So if it gets here and then it slopes down, it doesn't really matter because this is all going behind the sheathing, which is in a normal house, drywall, and in a tiny home, plywood or some other kind of a sheathing process. So it doesn't matter if you lap down here, you're just adding more work for yourself later. What's really important now is that we have this slope to the outside, and we're actually going to press this down with the second stage of backing to make sure that any rain that does get in does not pass the dam. Okay, so you can see here that the tape doesn't really know what it's doing because it's over empty space. It is not important for me to press this down and get it formed to this dam because the whole point is to have a slope. That was initially what we started with, right? This is just a cheaper, easier, faster, simpler way to do the slope, is to just make this dam here, which is a really great idea that was passed on to me by Chris Lummer-Giddens from LG Squared Architecture. So we can just kind of get this generally adhered, but not stress out the tape because you can stretch the stuff to within an inch of its life, and you don't really want to be doing that yet because we are going to do that next, which is stage 3 of this backing. So once I have all of this set up, I am going to be going over the outside black weather barrier, which is this stuff at the bottom, so that I'm making this sill that water is just going to want to spill over if it finds its way in here and down onto the weather barrier, which is our drainage plane. Critical. The difficult part is these corners right here. What are we going to do about that? Hey, I have a good idea. Let's manufacture some really cool tape that stretches like crazy, and we can just smear that down the side of the house. So I'm going to invite you outside to watch me do this next part. So stage 3 starts like this. As soon as I adhere this to the outside of the weather barrier, you notice that this comes up. It wants to be with all the rest of it. So what I have to do now is peel this down and around and actually push this thing like so. This is all part of an air sealing and weather barrier system that comes from 475 High Performance Building Supply, and those guys have us all set up with all of the different components that are going to give us a really good weather seal on the house to make sure there's no unintended consequences for anything weather related or air leakage related. In general, like I mentioned, this stuff is pressure activated. So if you haven't pressed too hard, if you have a wrinkle, you can generally get it out before you have messed up with it too much by pulling it away. If you do have a wrinkle that's in this rubberized tape, you can generally kind of massage it out because it's kind of like a muscle. It's got all kinds of little things that are interacting in there, so you can kind of ease it out if you do have a problem. You want this to have no wrinkles in it because you want water to go away from it and not to just hang out in general, except if it's right here in front of this dam, which is what it's for. So when you get your windows that you have ordered, apparently they'll let you order custom sizes. I felt a little nervous about doing this. I knew for a fact that they knew how to make their standard sizes, so I ordered based on their standard size library. which you are welcome to do. Now, this is how it's going to come. It's wrapped up in cardboard. I have taken off half of the cardboard that covers this, but it is kind of fragile. So when you pick it up from wherever you've ordered it from, you want to be obviously in a vehicle that you're not going to drive crazy and all that stuff. I've been very nervous about these the whole time. But building the house with my family, which is the best way to build a house, by the way, if you ever get a chance to do it, has been really relaxing. We're all, our joke is, hey, you know how much that window costs? And we actually know the prices on all these windows, so we've been reciting them. So when you get this, you need to take off the cardboard, and the cardboard is held onto the window with these big, gnarly staples. You're going to want to take these staples off, because why not? I'm not a master builder or anything, but I think that probably most of them would say better to have a clean workspace, and that counts staples sticking out of your stuff. Now that we've taken those out, we want to make sure that this thing is facing the right way up, and that you know how the rest of it is put together. So we've got an inside, which is this wood, which goes on the interior, and you can paint it or stain it or whatever you want, and an outside. Now this happens to be a wood window that is sheathed on the outside in aluminum. That makes it a little bit more durable, and it's just gonna not rot and all that stuff. And on a tiny house where we're gonna be traveling around the country, that's kind of a big deal for us. So you can pick the color of this. Now the nail fin, which is the flange that we're gonna nail onto the sheathing, is this right here. And we're gonna need to bend that up ourselves. We're gonna do that in just a second. First, we need to start prepping our hole from the outside to receive this window. Okay, so we are caulking on all three sides, but not the bottom. Incredibly important. Number one, the caulk is good because it helps form the air seal, also the weather seal, but you're not doing it on the bottom because just in case water does get in here, which we spent a couple minutes talking about just now, we want it to be able to get back out. So we are not caulking the nail fin to the house because water should be able to come out. So skip this, everything else. So now we're bending this nail fin up to 90 degrees. So it's gonna sit right against the house. You don't need to use a protractor here or an angle measurement. You can eyeball it because the main thing is to just get this thing up against the house flat so that it's seated exactly where it needs to be. As you can see, it has these little nice bonding points here, which helps with the weather seal as well. We're still going to tape over that because I don't trust that. Okay, now that we have the nail fin fully extended, we're going to go ahead and put it up in place from the outside. You could do this from the inside where you hand it out on a kind of diagonal, but in this case it's easy enough to just hand up. This and everything after this is a two-person job, not a one-person job. So make sure that you've got your helper, like your dad, inside, and what I'm doing right now is being the assistant. I'm just holding this thing up so that it doesn't fall out and cost me a bunch of money again. He is inside, busily making sure that all of the gaps around the window are the same size and that the window is plumb and level. What you can see my dad is doing is shimming, which is these little pieces of wood that are composite, by the way. You want them to be rot resistant because these are technically going to be exposed to water, like we've been talking about. But essentially, when you find that the gap is different, you want to insert the shims to make sure that it evens out so that you've got the window square, plumb, level. Now, aside from the composite shims, which I did not know we needed until the morning that I started installing these windows, is these nails. These are 2-inch 11-gauge roofing nails. Guess what they don't put on the box of nails that you buy at the hardware store? The gauge. So what I did is just go to the roofing section and look at the label that says roofing nails, 2-inch, and that's what I bought. We had 10-gauge, or 10D rather, which I don't know why everything is so different, but regardless, this is what you need to get. The manufacturer is going to specify this, and you want to ask about it beforehand, because when you get all your windows and you're like, I'm going to install these right now at 6 o'clock in the morning, which is me, and then you go out and you realize, oh, I don't have all the stuff that I need, or it's 10 o'clock at night or whatever. It's upsetting. So you have the right stuff, This is very easy to do. You have a hammer, you have a nail, and you very carefully, I say easy, but not simple or calming. I am hammering right next to my very expensive window that I just installed. And as you can see, the caulk is squeezing out. I'm going to get caulk all over the head of my hammer. It's a mess. It's a building site. So once we've done this, and I'm going to go ahead and hammer all these nails in, and then you're going to come back and see the taping process. This is going to take me about 5 minutes tops, so I'll see you in a minute. So as you finish this process, as you can tell, everything along the way, there's lots of ways we could have done this wrong. We did it the right way, which I'm very happy about. It helps to have somebody who's working with you who is a perfectionist. So now we're going to be applying the tape. The tape is a very important last step to make sure that we have the full shingle effect, so that rain falls on something, it's going to go down and lap onto something else, and that falls down and laps onto something else, and there's no crack that is in the direction of gravity so that it can find its way inside, because it's going to want to do that. So the first thing that we're going to do is start at the bottom. We are not going to tape over this. Guess why? We want water to come out of it, just in case anything gets in there. The general rule is build your house and design it so that water can't get in, but when it inevitably does get in, you want it to be able to get back out again. There's a hole here where the window is square, the hole is square, but this little piece of bonding tissue here is not square. I can stick my entire finger in there, so we want to just make sure that's covered up. So Paul is cutting some pieces that are going to fit over that very snugly and nicely, that are notched out, like so. And now we're going to do both sides. So we're going to put this on the side, and we don't need notched pieces like this on the top, because we're actually going to do a crisscross. We're going to go up, and then we're going to go across, and it does essentially the same job. So here again, we've got 2 pieces of backing. We're going to affix the narrower one first. Cool. We're good. So now as we move our way up from the sides, we're going to do the top, and this is air sealing the window to the sheathing. Why are we doing this under the weather barrier? Part of what we're doing is redundant. I'm sure that some of you out there are saying, I built 100 houses and that's just redundant. You're going to be doing that anyway. In part, a lot of what we're doing as we build this is redundant. We are building in redundant structural strength. We're building in redundant air sealing. We're building in redundant water control. I build in redundant happiness factors for my wife. I want to make sure that she's happy, and just in case she's not happy because of that, I want to make sure that I have 5 more things in the pocket, right? So it's just good practice in general to be cautious. We're air sealing this, and then also we will be weather barriering it, meaning that we're going to be protecting it from precipitation. But just because something is not going to get wet doesn't mean that air is not going to leak through it. And as you know me, I care about air leakage a lot. Now, before we bring the flap down, we're just going to weather seal this little corner and this little corner. Again, maybe redundant, but it's just a little bit of tape, and it makes me feel better at night knowing that there's no water coming into my house. So just to review, no caulk, no tape on the bottom. Water gets out. Tape along the sides after the little corner bottom piece in case you have a little gap there that you can stick your finger through. Then as we work our way up, 1 strip across the top, air sealing, strip here for shingling so that water doesn't find its way inside. Now we're going to let this go, and we put the last piece on the top, I just peeled off the small sticky layer, the small backing, and stuck this to the top of the window because, of course, the cladding is going to cover all of this beautiful black weather barrier, and it's going to come out to like here. So really, this window is going to end up being flush, so I don't need to worry about overlapping here. Now I'm going to peel off the bigger backing. Again, avoiding wrinkles wherever you possibly can. So I hope this has helped you to see each step in the process done by an actual human. I wish that I had seen something like this when I was getting ready. Again, please keep watching, subscribe to the channel, visit our Facebook page, and thumbs up on that. We give you updates on where we're going to be for the Proof is Possible tour when we take the Tiny Lab around the country. And also, if you have any questions about any of this stuff, comment below this video because we do respond to things. And we'll actually make videos specifically for questions that are posed by our audience. So thanks very much for watching. Tune in next time.